everybody. Nicastro, CMSWire Managing Editor here with our latest CMSWire Contributor interview. It's going to be Rhoan Morgan, CEO and co-founder of DemandLab and a longtime CMSWire Contributor. Rhoan, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Dom. I'm really happy to be here.
So happy to have you. Before we get into the topic of the day, we're going to talk about corporate silos, breaking those down. They still exist. That's crazy to me. They always will. And
Crazy.
we're always going to have fodder and good people like you to talk about it. So that's awesome. But let's get into a little bit about yourself and your company. Why don't you tell our listeners what you're all about and your company?
Sure. So I started working in the space of marketing in my early 20s. Fell in love with it actually in high school. So it's been a passion of mine for most of my life. Started DemandLab in 2009, really at sort of the very beginning of the launch of marketing automation. And DemandLab started as a Marketo Salesforce consulting company. And our first clients were all on the West Coast, primarily because that's where it was sort of born and grew from. And since then, we have also, we're working with a lot of different marketing automation platforms and also do a lot of deep work in data because as marketing technology has grown, it's more clear than ever that data is obviously a key component, foundational component. And then we've also done a lot of work with clients just strategically and then also execution around how to best leverage their MarTech systems. That's what we do today, 14 years later.
Yeah, marketing automation, really the bread and butter, the bedrock of like any good marketing operations team. It's like, I've been covering, the space since, 2014 for CMSWire, and as many advancements as we could have, AI, DXPs, or whatever acronym you want to throw out there. The bottom line, my marketing team is still embedded into Marketo every day. It's the lifeblood, right? These tools really are the lifbloods of many a marketing operations team. So it's good that folks like you are in the space to help. So your latest CMSWire column talks about those silos, like we said. So do corporate silos really exist these days? I think I know the answer to this one.
Well, and what I think is really interesting is that if you look at our blog or any other consulting firm out there, they've been talking about silos. Any analyst firm, they're all talking about silos for years and years and years. That hasn't changed. And as you actually said earlier before we started recording, it probably won't change. There are some really good reasons for some silos, subject matter expertise, accountability, I think is another really good reason. You need to have some sort of structure. But yes, the silos are still alive and well. I talk about sometimes, we'll have clients that will say, oh, we go to happy hour. This was pre everybody working at home.
Right.
And so everything's fine. But in fact, still within the organization, there's still a lot of silo effects related to, sort of a disconnect between what marketing is doing and sales is doing, and then bring in IT and customer success. They have different goals and KPIs. They're kind of running sometimes in different directions. So it is alive and well for sure.
Yeah. And what's the like the bottom line impact on business growth? Because when I see something like this, I say, wait a minute, is it possible that you can have silos and kind of still be good? Or is it, hey, if you have these, it's going to impact growth in a negative way?
We really believe that you have to break down the silos in order to achieve growth. And this has already been proven by a number of different research. But the silos between these key functions of marketing, sales, customer success, IT, they can be broken down, and they must be, because ultimately what you achieve is sort of a harmonized customer experience. And that's what everybody's demanding now. There's way less patience by the consumer in the B2B space and the B2C space to sort of deal with a experience that brings friction into their world, right? You're going to lose them very quickly. And so when you can harmonize these functions, you do see, and it's proven that you see increased returns, double digits, compared to organizations that are more siloed, or they have, not focused on creating that sort of one customer view. So it must be done. The how to do it is complex. It's a really complicated challenge, but the returns and the benefits of doing this are not only external with increased returns, revenues, et cetera, but also internal. There, you can also see that teams working in more harmony, and you rowing in the same direction, as we put it here internally, are happier. There's a greater bond between the entire organization, which I'm sure also has an impact on revenues.
Yeah. And as far as, putting this together and building the team that's gonna actually literally break down the silos, you put marketers as the lead on that. You think the CMO, for instance, could be a good leader for that, should be the leader. Now, convince me, because you and I are both like, we're partial towards marketers, right? You and I, convince me that's just not you
Yeah.
being partial to your friends.
So, in fact, we've talked about this quite a lot. In 2017, I wrote a book with our COO, Eric Hollabone, called Change Agents. It's a small, beautifully designed book, I must say. But anyhow,
Right.
you can check it out on our website.
Perfect.
And it is kind of the beginning of this thinking. But if you look back, there's a page on our site that talks about this, and it is from 2016. It's a snapshot that I personally took at the summit, a Marketo summit. And there was some research done in 2016. I can't remember who did it. What came out of it, though, is that 86% of CMOs believed that they would own the customer experience. They would own CX by 2020. And that did not happen. Maybe about 35%. There were additional surveys and research that we did to find how many do own it. And so this is not just me saying this should happen. This actually, I think, is something that marketers and CMOs would like to own that mandate. And it's partially because we're so passionate about the customer. That is the only thing that marketers are thinking about day in and day out. And so to me, it's a very easy step to head in this direction where marketers are going to own that entire experience. They want to.
Yeah. And they get a CMO would have a pretty clear connection to the CEO and the C-suite as well. So they are kind of in those conversations that can also help with this effort, I'm sure. At our own CMSWire Connect in May in Austin, all the CX people were talking about breaking through that C-suite, lack of support.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a common thing. So to have someone in there breaking silos that can speak to the C-suite is huge.
So I think that what's really interesting about what you just said is that CMOs still have the shortest tenure within an organization, and you don't see as many on boards. So they still, while they're in the C-suite, because they have the chief in front of their title, I think there still needs to be some change around how they're perceived within an organization. And the really smart chief executive officers are the ones that are putting more faith and more ability in their CMOs. And you are seeing the numbers increase. CEOs and CFOs are expecting more from the CMO, and they are thinking that they should get more strategic input from the CMO. However, they need to follow that up with some of actions that will support a CMO actually being fully successful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's such a theme we heard throughout that Connect conference was that you need more support. It's like, we would love to roll this out, but we don't get the support. So it was a real thing that I was hearing in person in Austin, Texas. That was great. Well, Rhoan, I think we've covered this topic very well. And your column speaks for itself too. So I hope people get a lot out of that column as well that this video is inside of. So, Rhoan Morgan, CEO and
Great.
co-founder of DemandLab and longtime CMSWire contributor. Can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was great to be able to spend a little time with you.
You too.
Have a great
Certainly
one.
was my pleasure. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.